Welcome to Stitchery Stories, where textile artists share their life in fabric and thread, inspiration, techniques, disasters and delights. And I'm Susan Reeks, enthusiastic embroiderer and textile art dabbler who also loves podcasting. So take a break and enjoy our light-hearted chat, and please share with your friends so they can enjoy it too. Hello and welcome to our lovely guest today, Anne Brooke. Hi Anne.
Hi Sue.
I've got Anne's little bio here. She's a fellow Yorkshire girl. So I am a mixed media textile artist living and working in Brighouse, West Yorkshire. I have been creating my own work since 2011, but I am still an art teacher at our local secondary school. I create bespoke mixed media textile pieces of work that are combined with my love for drawing. Instead of drawing with a pencil, I use a needle and thread. I build up layers of paper and fabric, reworking my pieces with paint, ink, dyes and stamps before drawing on the surface with a sewing machine and a needle. My inspiration comes from the walks and journeys that I go on. Starting with the first step and my right foot, I collect, draw and photograph the treasures that can go unnoticed, and these become the inspiration for my work. So that's a lovely introduction there, Anne. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Before I forget, then Anne has a lovely website, and that's probably the best place where you can go to find information about Anne. And she is on varying social media platforms, but the links are all there on her website. So that's the easiest way to keep in touch with what Anne's up to. And I forgot to say that Anne's website is annebrook.co.uk, and her links all be on the page on the stitcherystories.com website for Anne and her episode. So with that being said, before we get started with a bit more detail about your stitchery story, would you like to share with us what you're working on at the moment, Anne, and what has got you excited?
Right. Well, one of the things that I've been playing around with at the moment is something that's a bit unusual, because I've actually been playing with fabric. And it's not something I would normally do because I prefer to work with paper. But I've got a little bit obsessed at collecting vintage tablecloths and handkerchiefs and things.
Oh, yes.
So I've been busy stitching and playing around with those, possibly with a new workshop coming up later this year.
Yeah.
And I've also been revisiting a workshop I went on with Angie Lewin, who's one of my biggest inspirations. Yeah. And I went and did some woodcut blocks with her. So I've just bought myself some new wood carving tools.
Ooh.
So I've been doing those at the moment.
Exciting.
So just playing around.
Yeah.
And I would say probably the thing that's got me most excited at the moment is just waiting for spring and starting to go on all my walks this year and collecting all my inspiration for all the work that hopefully I'll start producing later on this year.
Right. Yes, it's always nice. So it's a lovely day today here on the coast, and the birds are out singing, and it's really nice. You think, yeah, spring's not really too far away. But then, was it yesterday or the day before? Oh, the day before, I decided to go running, and consequently, 3 minutes into my run, the heavens opened. It was hailstones. Running along the seafront in a headwind in hailstones isn't fun, and it didn't feel like spring at all, I have to say.
Right. Okay. Well, it's sunny here in Brighouse as well, and just noticed I've got my first snowdrops have opened.
Ooh,
so
that's nice.
Straight away, as I was driving around taking my girls to school this morning, in my head I'm already thinking, oh, snowdrops.
Yes.
That might be the first theme of some of my new work this year.
Yes, lovely. And it was interesting that you're saying that you're moving on to fabric, which almost kind of could make us giggle to say that this is a textile art.
Yes.
But yes, a lot of your backgrounds of the work I've seen so far have been paper, haven't they? So that's quite an interesting move forward, or a different direction, let's put it that way, yeah.
Yeah, I sort of started off playing around with fabrics originally, but I get cross with fabric because I can't make it do what I want it to do. And because I'm art trained rather than textile trained, I have a love of paper anyway. So I just started sewing onto the paper and really got into that. But then when I've been out and about and seen all these beautiful fabrics, I have a massive fabric stash. I just don't do anything with it.
Right.
I've banned myself now at the moment from buying any more fabric until I start using it. So it's giving me a little bit of inspiration. to actually start using it, so then I can go shopping to buy some more.
Well, this is it. Yes. Now, with regards to the old tablecloths and kind of old vintage fabrics and stuff like that, is that counted in shopping, or do you go and get those out of charity shops and things like that? Is that a different kind of shopping?
Yeah, that's charity shops. That's different. That's not like going to an art show and buying beautiful fat quarters and things like that. But that's just like a sideline.
Yes.
That's what I tell my husband anyway.
Well, exactly, yeah. I bet you sneak the bags in as well, don't you, when he's not looking?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's amazing what you can fit in your school bag when you bring it home from work. You've just called in the shops as you came home.
Oh, dearie me. Right, and it is nice, actually, to see some of the old pieces being used, and there's quite a few people doing that, whereas before it almost seemed a shame. You could imagine them just getting thrown out. I think people's thinking, oh God, all this old stuff for grannies, and chucking it out, and it's like, well, it's a real shame because it's lovely. It's really nice.
I mean, the ones that I've started using, I do try and use them if they're damaged, because when you see something that's beautiful and perfect, I don't like the idea of cutting those up. But if
I couldn't do that either.
Away, then I'm sort of giving them new life and sort of sharing them again with other people. So
brilliant.
It's upcycling.
Yeah, yes.
I like upcycling.
Yeah, that's a good way to go with it. So you've just said there that actually you're kind of art, paper and paint trained rather than textiles. So how did you get interested in the embroidery and textile art side of things, Anne? How did that go, and what sort of things did you do, and who taught you?
Well, I suppose the first bit of textiles that I ever did was with my mum when I was little, and it's when we used to go to jumble sales.
Yes.
I really missed the jumble sale. And I used to go with my mum and buy bits and pieces, and she'd help me sew and stitch and do things like that on there. But as textiles as an art form, I didn't really come across that until I actually started teaching.
Right.
And one of the teachers that I was working with was a textile teacher, and I used to go on workshops with her. And that's sort of where it all started, was starting going on all these different sorts of workshops. And I kept doing them, and I kept going on workshops and thinking, right, this is what I want to do. And I'd come home and do what everybody does. I'd go and buy the kit and the books and play around with everything, and then decide, no, it's not for me. So it would all go in a box. And I just kept on going, and it was getting a little bit ridiculous. I was loving the workshops, but it just didn't feel like I was going anywhere. So I decided to do a City and Guilds embroidery level 3.
All right, yes.
And I did that probably around about 2008, 2009. And I did it distance learning so that I could fit it in and around work.
Yes.
And because of that, we ended up delivering an A-level textile course at work. So I brought the art textile side, and I worked with the textile teacher.
Yes.
And absolutely loved it, really liked doing it. And it's sort of, me actually then producing my own work hadn't really happened up to that point. But we have an art exhibition that started in 2010, I think it was, the Calderdale Open Art Exhibition. And they tried to get as many art teachers involved as possible.
Right, yes.
And I was asked if I'd put some work in. And I thought, well, I didn't really have very much. I had a few little bits because I'd sort of got into applique. And that's when my love of going around all the charity shops happened. So I was working with fabric at that point. But my love of seed pods has been there for years. So I was making these small textile pieces based on all these seed heads. So I entered them in to the exhibition, never thinking it would get anywhere, and got a phone call to say that 2 of my pieces had been accepted.
Oh, brilliant.
They've gone into the exhibition, which I thought was fantastic, because I never expected anybody to like what I was doing. I liked it, but you never think anybody else is going to.
No, that's a common theme as well, yes.
Definitely. And I got a phone call to invite me to the opening because I'd won one of the prizes.
Yeah, oh, lovely.
Which was lovely. And then I suppose the highlight of it all was somebody bought a piece of my work. And I never even imagined that anybody would ever buy a piece of my work. And it all really started from there.
Right, that's a really good place to start as well, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Be at an exhibition, win a prize, not thinking that anybody would be interesting, and sell there as well. So
yeah. So it's all because of that. That's where it all really started from.
Yeah, cool. So you mentioned earlier about going on workshops and being inspired by one particular lady. And I think we all do that, don't we, as well? We kind of go get that workshop habit. yeah, sometimes it can be nice not to have the temptation of workshops, can't it? And then we do have to do our own thing. So, yeah, so the inspirations there, you mentioned about, you know, the lady who you were going on the workshops for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there any other kind of inspirations that's come over to you?
There's been different people as I've gone along.
Yeah.
Angie Louie's probably one of my biggest influences because I absolutely adore her work.
Yeah.
But it's usually when I've gone out and about. So I'd been out to Farfield Mill when Elaine Hughes, she had a workshop actually at the mill. And that's when I came across another person that loved working with paper and stitching. And that's, I think, probably one of the times when you know you have like that eureka moment.
Yes.
And you just think, oh, this is actually going to work. Because in my head originally, I didn't see how the paper and stitching was going to work because I just thought it's just going to fall to pieces. Nothing because you're stitching into paper, but just seeing other people doing it sort of gave me the inspiration to sit and start playing.
Yes.
I think that's one of the things when you go and look at the work of other people and you go on workshops and things like that, it just gives you a little bit more confidence that, like you say, when you haven't been on one, you've got your stash because we all have our stashes at home. And just to spend the time just getting everything out and just sitting and playing. Yes. And I think that's probably what happens. I'm an avid Pinterester. I love Pinterest. So if I ever have one of those like artist blocks, you can always go on there and see things that just spark you.
Yeah, yes, absolutely, and it's a fantastic resource, isn't it? I have to say, I'm really enjoying Instagram for similar kind of thing. Really, I've been sharing images from the guests on the podcast as well, and for me, that's turning into a really good way of connecting with artists and sharing work and with that kind of community. So yeah, it is, and you can just, sometimes I'll just type in, I don't know, sky or seeds or anything really, and all sorts pop up, isn't it really? So yeah, it's really, really lovely to be able to do that. We're spoilt, I think, in that respect with inspiration too much now, I think.
Yeah, I think sometimes you can get a little bit too much because I know sometimes when I've been on Pinterest, you can look down and you've just lost an hour of your life. It just vanished and you didn't even realise it had gone.
Yes. So you use that as an inspiration, and then you mentioned in your bio there about being inspired by going on your walks and out and about and seeing what you see.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the advantages with modern technology of having a phone with you that has a camera, if I'm out and about anywhere and just see things, it's just photographing them. So some of I love dandelion heads. I photograph those every time I see them. But it's just fantastic that you can just go out and about, take pictures of things, bring them back and draw in my sketchbook, turn them into pieces of work. And one of my favourite ones, which is Shepherd's Purse, I found that one when we were on holiday in Sands End on the coast.
Oh, yeah.
And just seeing a little weed that had heart-shaped little leaves was just so fabulous. So the walks that I do, the big inspiration. So that's why I'm always excited when it's coming around to springtime, because I know I'm going to start getting out and about and seeing all the different plants and flowers that are coming up. So my work sort of evolves depending on what I've seen recently.
And I think that's a really good way to be doing it as well. It's personal reflections, isn't it, really?
Yes. So my work it's basically all themed around journeys. So because I upcycle materials and things, they've sort of been on a journey.
Yes.
And the inspiration comes from journeys. And I put maps in there and I try and link the map either to the walk that I've been on or somewhere that's been important to me. So it all sort of comes together, and then the pieces of work go on a journey if somebody takes them to their house or I've given them away to somebody or something like that. That's
a really nice idea, thinking about it in terms of journeys. As you say, things do move around, and well, I've moved around a lot as well. So there's a lot of things that you can find. You can journey around, and as you say, you can also see them on your doorstep as well.
Yeah, sometimes you can be on a really long walk and come back home and you've got nothing. And then all of a sudden there's a plant that's popped up in your garden, or you walk past a dry stone wall and there's a tiny little bit of moss or a weed and you think, well, I mean, I've just gone for an hour's walk. I could have just had a look outside my doorstep.
Yes. Now, you mentioned your sketchbooks there as well. Now, that's one thing I have noticed on Instagram. You've been sharing your sketchbooks, and you're a lovely drawer. I'm hopeless at drawing. Well, I shouldn't say I'm hopeless at drawing. I'm not hopeless at drawing, but obviously you're an art teacher. You've got that real nice arty kind of sketchbook thing going on. My sketchbooks is like pencil, where I'd plan out what my design's going to be, but I don't go around sketching. So I'm always full of admiration about these lovely sketchbooks that everybody does. Think, well, that takes as much time, surely, some of these, as actually doing the pieces of work does. But I think it's valuable for exploring ideas, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, one of the things that I started doing was I've always had sketchbooks, And I have different piles of sketchbooks at home. So I have ones that are part of all my projects where I've started something and got bored and not finished the sketchbook. Then I've got my beautiful sketchbooks with handmade paper that I just get them out and stroke them.
Are they too nice to use?
They're far too nice to use because I'm scared of spoiling them. So they're just beautiful. And then I have my workbooks, and I started calling them workbooks probably about 4 or 5 years ago, because I think if you call it a sketchbook, straight away you just feel like you're under pressure to do some amazing drawings. So I tend to call mine workbooks, and I don't have a theme with them. I just usually get one at the start of the year and just start working on it. So it might have some drawings, photographs, doodles, sketches, lists of things that I need to do, my calendar plans. And I think I just use it more. I suppose it's more like a visual diary.
Like a planner, visual planner. Yeah. That's a good idea. And I just got one of those A3 ones. And what I finished up doing in there is, say, like some of the competitions, it's a theme, isn't there? So you're racking your heads to think, right, what can I do on this theme? And so I kind of do me doodles and drawings and stuff in there, and then actually kind of plan it out as I'm going to do it, and then I'll put some photos in, or if I've printed something out. So I think mine is more of a record of what I did for that specific design. It's not an ongoing thing like you're developing there as an ongoing record, and you can start, and as you say, you call it a workbook. So visual planner, that's a nice idea.
They're also really handy, because then if you do go on a workshop, you can take it with you. Because I know in the past I've gone to workshops and you've watched the artist and they've explained and said, right, off you go. And you sit there for 10 minutes thinking, well, I don't know what to do. Well, if I take my books with me, it's full of all my photographs, my pictures, and it gives me a bit more of a reason to print things out, because I've got loads of photos on my computer. I forget that they're there. So I try and make a point now of when I've gone on a walk, I always print out a selection of the pictures and stick them in my book so that I've got them there. And then if you're out and about, you can just really quickly just look back through your book and you can think, oh, I did that walk then and I found that, I remembered that plant and that idea that I had. So if you do get a bit of a time where you think, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, it's really handy just to flip back, because you can think about what you were thinking about like last month or last year. And every so often I do go and get my first books out. And it's quite interesting, because to start off with, my books were mainly written, whereas now they're more visual. And it's quite interesting to see how you change as you're going along.
Oh, yeah. No, and do you know, that's a really good idea. One of those so simple things. Yes, if you're doing workbooks and sketchbooks, take it with you. Go to it. Take it with a workshop. Because you say you sit there, don't you? And you waste so much time, because then your brain goes there, because it's like, right, and go. We're half an hour before we need to start ironing this thing or printing this thing out or
because the other thing I used to do is if I went on a workshop, I'd take a notebook with me, and it was always a new notebook. And I'd write in the notebook, come home from the workshop and everything, and I'd lose the notebook with all the instructions in. And I was clearing out my studio last year, and I found so many boxes from workshops with fabrics and materials in that I'd got the labels on. There were no instructions. I have no idea what they are, but I've kept them because I might need them, obviously, at some point in the future when I remember what it is. So I do think it's quite good, because what I've started doing now is when I do bring packs home, is I put a date on it, and then I can refer to the date in my workbook, so I've got the information. You learn when you lose lots of things.
Exactly. That's a really great way of using your workbook. Do it as a visual planner and keep track of what you are doing at workshops and so on. Because the temptation is you come home, as you say, then it goes in a box or a carrier bag. Goes in a carrier bag. You put the notebook with the instructions or whatever in there sometimes, and then that's it. It's kind of archived, isn't it? So.
Yeah, it is.
Oh dear. Right, now you've mentioned about you've spent a lot of time developing the technique of using the different papers. So if your other favourite techniques or something that you really, really like doing, and why do you like doing that technique so much, Anne?
I think probably one of the nicest techniques I've sort of been using this last year was actually hand dyeing all my own threads.
Oh, right, yes.
Because I love using embroidered threads. So when I've done any of my work, I love hand stitching. It's one of the things I usually sit and do on an evening when I'm sat with the girls or we're watching the telly or something like that.
Yes.
And I'd been on Frances Pickering's workshop. I'd made a book with her.
Yes.
And she was talking about dyeing your own threads. And I use Kohinoor fabric dyes to dye them, and you can end up, it's beautiful because when you've been doing a piece of work, you can keep a colour theme. So then that's one of the things with the vintage threads the vintage fabrics that I've been doing.
Yes.
I've been dyeing the threads to match the colours of the fabrics.
Oh, nice.
That the piece fits together. And because when you dye the fabrics, you can dot on different colours. As you stitch, the colours change. So you're not having to change thread, and you don't really control it. And I just really like how it becomes quite random then when you're stitching as to what colour's going to appear where. So at the moment, dyeing my own threads is probably one of the things that I'm a little bit obsessed about.
Oh, that sounds really interesting as well, because I am that person who's bought. I've got some fabric paints. I don't think I've used them very much. I've got about 2 or 3 different sorts of dyes and kits and things like that. Yeah. I'm going to get really into doing this, and I don't. And so it's always after I've done these things. Right, go on, Susan, go and get them dyes out. You bought them, get them out, and stop being scared. I don't know whether it's just like, I feel as if it's going to be a messy to do. Do you know what I mean? So,
yeah. Well, I think the Koh-i-No dyes that I use, they look a little bit like watercolours, so they're like a little set palette.
Yeah.
So for dyeing your own threads, it's so simple to do because you just wrap your threads around and just wet them. And I've discovered as well, if you want to knot the colours back, if you use cold tea, you get more of a vintage feel to the colours.
Yeah.
And then you just dab the colours on, and you just do them in little palettes and stick them on the radiator. And after 2 hours, you've just got some hand-dyed threads that you straight away you can just start sewing with.
And what sort of thread do you use to dye?
Just cotton.
Yeah.
Just different thicknesses of cotton. Embroidery cottons and crochet cotton.
Yeah.
And I do have some Egyptian cotton machine thread. So it's quite nice to use different thicknesses of thread as well. But you just get a really nice feel with all the colours and things
because
like
that could be the absolute nightmare though, isn't it? Trailing around thinking, well, I've got this colour in my head or this thing, and where do I can't find anything that's going to match. Or you rummage around through your stashes of threads because I buy loads of those. And you think, no, that's not right, that's no. And you're just like, oh, okay, so I've still got this pile of thread and I'm off now trying to find something else. And I haven't got a great deal of resources around here to do that sort of thing. So, actually, that's quite inspired me to pull my finger out and get some of these things. I've started using those Inktense blocks. I like using those.
Yes.
Use those
they're
on
lovely colours.
plain white felt, just stroke them on and then wet it. That's a bit of a cheats way of doing it, but I've quite enjoyed using those. So that's a really handy technique, and you've really inspired me now to get on and to get some hand-dyed threads going.
Okay,
Thank you. So you've gone through your story about starting relatively late, really, in terms of creating your own pieces and your own work. So would you say so far there's been a high point to what you feel you've achieved on your journey of your textile art and embroidery?
Well, I'd probably say one of the high points was when it all started off.
Yes.
Because without going to that exhibition or putting any work in, I don't think it would really have ever have started.
Yeah.
But I'll probably say Harold My Hair has been probably the biggest highlight so far, because I was lucky enough to win the Embroiderers Guild Cup and the Joe Quinn Award for Creativity with him. And he's in storage somewhere waiting to go back out on exhibition with the Embroiderers Guild, page 17.
Page 17, yes. That's going somewhere. I've got a piece in there.
Yeah, I'm quite missing him though.
Yes, he's lovely. Yeah, so I first saw Harold at the Bankfield Museum when the Yorkshire and Humber Regional Embroiderers Guild, we had our exhibition there. Didn't I spot him in Stitch magazine this month as well, Anne?
Yes, he's getting around, bless him. Yeah, he gets all over the place. I'm becoming, I think, more known for my Harold than I am for actually my own work at the moment. So, I mean, he all came out of one of my workshops that I was doing. He was a sample when I was demonstrating. So I just decided, one of my girls had asked me if I'd have a go at doing a hair.
Yes.
So I started it actually on a workshop and then just really took to him when I was doing it. So he actually has inspired quite a few different animals that I've done as well, which isn't normally what I would be attracted to.
Right.
But it's quite nice, I think, sometimes as well, if you've got a theme to your work, to break off and try other things, because even if you're using the same technique, having a go at different shapes and colours can actually give you something new that you'd never have thought of trying beforehand.
Yes, and it's easy sometimes, I suppose, in in whatever we are doing to get into a bit of a rut as well, isn't it? So, so I think that's a really good way of doing that, is challenging yourself. As you say, it may be a similar technique with a different sorts of subjects, or a different technique with similar subjects. So there's always something else that can be developed onto in there. But as a highlight, as you say, it's quite unique to almost start with your highlight as a way of really kick-starting on that journey. So that's wonderful, that. But yeah, Harold is cute. I think we all
he is cute.
And I've also included a picture of Harold as one of the pictures that Anne has given me that will go on her page on the stitcherystories.com website, and we'll be sharing him on Instagram as well.
Oh, thank you.
So, talking about trying new things and experimenting things, do you have any stories that we might all have a bit of a giggle at in a light-hearted way about when something you tried and didn't quite go as planned, and possibly disaster's a bit strong, but importantly, what did you learn from that experience, Anne?
I think probably the times when I go most wrong is when I'm tired. And I did have, it was a couple of years ago, I was going to art in the pen, and because I was still working full time at that point, so I was trying to get as much work done as possible. And I'd got 3 or 4 pieces of work on the go, and I'd been working all day, and I just thought, right, I just need to finish the machine stitching, and then I can carry on with the hand stitching in my own time. So I set off stitching my pieces of work, and I'd probably been stitching for about 20, 30 minutes, and I thought, this is quite heavy going. Normally this thick, I'm not quite sure what's happening. So I changed my thread colour, pulled the piece of work out, and discovered that I'd just stitched everything together. And I hadn't kept them separate. And obviously, with paper, you can't unpick it because you're left with holes.
Holes, yes.
So I managed to save the top piece, and the other 2 pieces I had to throw in the bin. I did learn at that point that when I'm tired, I really should not be in charge of a sewing machine.
I'm just a
little bit too dangerous. So that was quite upsetting when I did that. I'm
not surprised. So that was 3 pieces of work you'd picked up unknowingly and sewed them all together in a sandwich.
It was very, very, very disheartening. Very disheartening. But I have learnt from that now. I do know that when I start getting tired, I just have to stop and just think, right, it'll be fine. I can catch up again tomorrow.
Yes.
And touch wood, I've not done it again.
Right. Oh, well, there we are then. So that was a good learning experience, although it was horribly distressing.
Yeah, it was a bit upsetting, and it meant I had quite a bit more work to redo. But it's just one of those things. It's only paper. It wasn't at least a beautiful piece of fabric that I had to throw in the bin. It was just paper. It was mainly my time that had sort of been thrown away.
Oh dear. Now, you mentioned about the workshop habit. So the workshop habit of doing workshops, and then how often do we ever finish anything? Stick it in a bag, and it adds to that collection of UFOs. So any specifically long-standing UFOs out of that collection? And do you ever think you'll finish it, Anne?
Well, one of the workshops that I went on was a doll making workshop. And I had an absolutely lovely day making this doll. She's one of the dolls that when I go out and about, she normally comes with me. And like I said before, when I came back off a workshop, I decided, dolls, this is it. This is what I want to do. So I went and bought the kit and the books and started playing around with dolls. And I have a doll that I started 12 years ago. My daughter found it because she's doing textile GCSE at the moment. And she'd gone rummaging through all my stuff, and she found this doll. And she's got lots of hair. She's totally naked because I only got as far as making the body and putting the hair on. And she's 12 years old and she's unfinished, and she will continue to be unfinished because I've no inclination of going back and finishing her. I don't want to throw her away, so she just sits in my cupboard. And every so often she comes back out and I go, oh, look, there you are. I'll put you back again. So I have quite a few, well, I call them PhDs because it just makes it sound a little bit like as if you've continued your degree. I have projects half done. So I have many PhDs. I'm very highly qualified.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, PhDs. I came across one which is obviously American. Projects in grocery sacks. Pigs.
I like that. That's a good idea. Yeah.
So we've got UFOs, PhDs and pigs. Marvellous.
Yes. Yeah, I think we're all just overly qualified.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, but I have quite a lot of UFOs. They're all in boxes. They've still got labels on the front telling me what I did. But I don't want to throw them away because I think it's part of you and who you are.
It is, and I've moved around quite a lot. And when I came back from France, I only had the opportunity for 2 large Mercedes vans full of stuff. That focuses one's mind. So sadly, along the way, a lot of things like that I have had to get rid of because I physically couldn't. There was other more important things like furniture and pots and pans.
Oh dear.
So it is. I know. So it is. It is actually quite distressing having to deal with that sort of thing. Although most people think, "Oh, God's sake, just throw it out. It's just a load of material." I know, but so I really don't have much of a stash. So,
oh gosh,
because I've already got rid of it along the way. Now, your career is that of an art teacher, and you're building your textile art practice on the side, as it were. So, crikey, you've got an awful lot to cope with. So, what about the saying, beware of long-distant elephants? So it's those items that seem so very far away, but they very slowly creep up on you, and suddenly there they are, looming large. So how do you manage your distant elephants, Anne? Keep track of your projects, plus all your schoolwork, etc., and keep yourself organised, sane, but keep creative as well.
Well, I don't know about staying sane. But if you ask any of my friends, they say I'm super, super organised. I have calendars all over the house. So each week on a Sunday, I sit down and plan the whole week. So the family know what we're eating, what we're doing, who's going where, who's picking up what, and what's going on. So I have big wall charts with everything on. And I think if you could have a queen of the lists, I am the queen of the list.
You're retired. Queen list.
I have so many lists. It's ridiculous. But even though I do try and organise myself, I am a little bit of a magpie. So if I have my list and there's something on it that's something fun, and that's possibly not that important or that urgent, but it's a lot more fun than the other things on the list.
Yes.
If I'm not being really, really disciplined, I will go and do that rather than stuff that actually needs doing.
Yes, yes. I think we're all quite guilty of that, aren't we?
Oh, definitely. I think just sometimes I do just think, oh, do you know what? All those other jobs, I know they're important, but I just want to go and sit and sew for half an hour. So I will do that. And I think that's probably one of the things that I've learned over the past few years, which was hard to do to start off with, because, I mean, like I say, I still work and I'm doing this. I've got 2 daughters and a husband. And actually prioritising time for yourself sometimes is really difficult.
Oh, it's the worst. It's the worst thing in the world.
It's so hard. So I think what I started when the girls were younger, when I used to go and sit when they were rock climbing or dancing or swimming, I'd be sat at the side with my sewing kit.
Yeah.
So I sort of had a mobile studio, and I'm very lucky because both of them are quite arty, crafty. So one evening a week we have an art evening where I can sit and do my stuff and they sit and do theirs, and they come out and about with me when I do things, and my eldest daughter helps me out with different things that I do. So I'm very lucky.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah. That's
in that
really
sense.
nice.
And my husband, Robert, bless him, he's very patient. He's very, very patient, and puts up with me doing all weird things, coming into the living room and finding just stuff all over the place, and just rolling his eyes and sitting down and watching the telly while I just crack on with whatever I'm doing.
Brilliant. It's lovely though, as you say, your daughters are arty and they're, kind of following in your footsteps and getting involved. And it is nice though to be able to sit and do something together.
Oh, it's lovely. Yes. It is lovely because I find, with teenagers as well these days, they're so connected to their phones, technology and stuff like that. When we sit, they talk to me.
Yes.
It's just because they don't even realise they're doing it half the time. So it's usually when I find out what's going on.
Yes.
They're not thinking before they start talking, which is nice.
Yes, absolutely. I know my lad's 13 and a half, and it's the only one I've got. And sometimes we'll say, right, let's get because he's kind of getting into art a bit. So I'll say, let's get these paints out, and I need to get him going. Do you know what I mean? So we'll get these paints out, and that's how you can mix this or do this, and he'll do that. And then he's also making this Pikachu, one of the Pokemons.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He's making a yellow Pikachu. And he designed that himself. It's in felt, and he's cut out the shape. And
fabulous.
Sewing like the little face, cheeks and stuff. He's doing that. We've been doing it quite a while now. So every now and again he gets his Pikachu out. So and he sometimes comes along to the Embroiderers Guild meetings with me if I've got no one to kind of keep an eye on him, and brings his Pikachu. But he started karate now, so I don't think he'll be going to embroidery anymore. So I've got that logistical nightmare now. How am I in 2 places at one time? I can't be at karate and embroidery guild at the same time. So. But it is funny because then we kind of chat and do things, and because I'm at my screen and my computer all the time. And the temptation is, I'm in one room on my computer, he's in his room doing whatever, and you don't see each other, and that's not nice.
Yeah.
So it is nice to be able to come together and, as you say, chat and do some creative projects. So, lovely. Yeah. So obviously you're telling there about the way in which you plan your week and so on. So what kind of exciting plans and projects have you got that you would like to share with us today, and things that have got you excited for the coming months other than spring?
Well, hopefully I've got a couple of articles coming out in some magazines later on this year, which will be quite nice.
Yeah, it's exciting.
I've got different workshops that I'm doing, so I'm beginning to do a little bit more travelling. So I'm over to Lincoln and Garston and down in Norfolk, doing some more travelling with my workshop.
Yeah.
And I'm just really looking forward to this year, planning and doing some of my own work, because I've now gone part-time at work, so I've got Fridays off.
Yay.
So it's going to be really nice for me to spend a little bit more time just developing my own work, because I've got so many different ideas that I want to do. And while I was working full-time, I just didn't have the time.
It's impossible, isn't it?
To do them. So I have my big list of things that I would like to do this year.
Fantastic. Oh, well, that'll be exciting about the magazine. So when you know a bit more and you can tell everybody, you'll be sharing that to death, surely.
Oh, yes, it'll be on my Facebook and website and everything. Yes,
brilliant.
Definitely.
Yeah, so keep an eye on what Anne's doing with her workshops and her articles and so on. Right, well, that's something really exciting to look forward to. And hopefully I'll bump into you at some kind of regional days or something with the embroidery.
Oh, no doubt.
Yes.
So, that was one of the things this year. I'm at summer school. I'm one of the tutors this year at the Embroiderers Guild, which I'm really looking forward to.
At the Bishop Burton, for the regional, at the Yorkshire and Humberside regional one?
Yes.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah,
I'm
if
just
anybody's
wondering
going to that, I'll see you there.
Yeah, well, that's just down the road from me, is Bishop Burton. It's only about 15 miles away or something. So it's
right.
It's not the location; it's the 13-year-old.
Yes, that's understandable.
Right. Okay. So that's another exciting thing then. We just about forgot that one. Yeah. Tutor at the summer school. Brilliant. Right. Thank you so much, Anne, for sharing your stitchery story with us today. It's been really interesting finding out more about you and your art and your story and how you continue to juggle developing your own art with your very busy school life. I'm sure our listeners would love to find out more about you. So we'll put your website link in the show notes, so that'll be on stitcherystories.com. And there we are. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much, Sue. It's been lovely chatting to you.
Thank you. If you liked this episode and want to hear more, then please join the Stitchery Stories fan club so you can get an email when a new episode is released. It's a quick and easy way of listening and of keeping up with any news and offers from our lovely guests. Please visit stitcherystories.com to join the fan club. Of course, if you have iTunes, then subscribe there to automatically get new episodes. And why not leave us a review and rating whilst you are there? So that is the end of our Stitchery story for today. So keep stitching, keep smiling, and keep creating your very own Stitchery stories.